This review will take a quick look at the John Benet Ramsey case. And the case, as I've stated earlier in other videos that I've done, is quite complex, it's confusing, and the evidence points in a variety of directions. Even the investigative bodies cannot agree on exactly what transpired in the home that night. And here's a review. I won't get all of it, I'll just try to get the core of it in. And let me get it on the screen here. One moment, please.
From early on the 26th of December, 1996, when police arrived to investigate a reported kidnapping at the Ramseys' Colorado home, they thought the parents were behaving strangely. Their suspicion grew that afternoon when John Ramsey discovered his daughter's body in this small cellar. By the time the body was removed late that evening, the police were almost certain the parents were involved. They had found no evidence of a break-in and no footprints in the snow. No one could have gotten in, something even the mayor confirmed.
By all reports, there was no visible sign of forced entry. The body was found in a place where people are saying someone had to know the house.
John and Patsy Ramsey now found themselves isolated and reviled. Few believed them when they said there was a killer on the loose. Instead, they were accused of deliberately sexualizing their daughter, turning her into a pedophile's dream. Police were said to believe that the parents had first abused John Benet and then murdered her, faking the kidnapping plot to cover it up. 6 weeks after the killing, District Attorney Alex Hunter held a press conference.
And let me advance this a bit. One moment, please. And here's Lou Smith, brought out of retirement to accommodate the case.
You do miss out on quite a bit of the feelings that you get during the initial investigation. That's where photographs really do come in. The Boulder Police Department did take great photographs. I did spend a great deal of time inspecting each and every one of those photographs. And they did tell me a story.
Much of the house had been disturbed by friends who had gone to help the Ramseys. This made one police photograph particularly significant.
John Benet's body was right behind that door when this photograph was taken. If that door would have been opened at that time, this case would have taken an entirely different turn. Everyone in the house would have been cleared out. Nothing would have been disturbed.
Smith found other early photographs that also worried him.
This photograph does show a lot of snow around the house. And if you've seen this, your first perception would be that a person who entered that house would have to leave some footprints in this snow. Now look at this photograph. The sidewalks are completely clear of snow. Another rather significant photograph taken from the alley. A person approaching this house from the alley would leave no footprints around the house.
Smith was surprised at the lack of snow, but the fact that someone could have reached the house did not mean anyone had. But it meant that he had to start looking for evidence of an intruder, which might have been missed. Because the family had been out visiting friends late on the night of the murder, there was plenty of opportunity for such a break-in.
If an intruder had spent any time at all checking out the house, he would have noticed that on various doors and windows there was a sticker indicating that the house was alarmed. On a lot of these older houses, the windows leading into the basement are not alarmed. And that drew my attention to this window on the north side of the house. It's a small window leading into the basement. When we inspected the photographs, we did see something very interesting.
Smith found the dust on the window frame had been disturbed. He also found what he thought were finger marks. He concluded that someone may have tried to open this window. Yet an interior photograph showed it remained locked and undisturbed. If there was an attempt, it had failed. However, another photograph taken in the basement suggested a second attempt could have succeeded.
Now this is a photograph that really caught my eye because the window was wide open. But what also caught my attention was a mark on the wall leading right directly from this open window down to the floor. When I first seen that photograph, I thought, uh-oh, looks like somebody could have got in here.
That open basement window was at the side of the house, underneath an unlocked metal grill. According to Smith, if an intruder had got in this way, there would be evidence here on the outside as well as on the inside.
And that's exactly what the photographs show me. There was a great deal of foliage which was on the front of the grate, and had actually been pinched under the leading edge of that grate.
And that's Lou Smith. He has since passed on, but he did a tremendous job in that case. And he was counter to the original theory by the Boulder Police Department that it was done by somebody inside the house, one of the family members. And let me advance this a bit.
No. But also we cannot just disregard it and say that he did not come through that window.
Smith knew that the local police had said they'd found no evidence of an intruder. Although his evidence so far was inconclusive, he felt it should at least be kept in mind. The Boulder police rejected his advice. Lead Detective Steve Thomas later publicly described the idea of an intruder as far-fetched and ridiculous. Ignoring Smith's advice, police set out to intensify media pressure on the Ramseys. Lacking evidence to justify...
And let me advance this a bit.
Controlled way. The person was not writing this note in panic. I've interviewed many murderers and even psychopaths. After a murder, they are extremely agitated. It is very difficult for them even to sit down. In my estimation, there's just absolutely no way that they could have written that note after that murder. I believe that this note was written before the murder. This note suggests violence, what he's going to do to this little girl. If you want her to see 1997, will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will be denied her remains for proper burial. Will result in your daughter being beheaded. She dies. She dies. She dies. She dies. 99% chance of killing your daughter. Don't think that killing will be difficult. This is what the killer is saying. It's vicious and brutal. It's a personality. It would be a great...
While Smith was finding troubling evidence pointing towards an intruder, the police were developing a new theory. They believed that John Benet had been killed by her mother Patsy, who had lashed out in anger after her daughter had wet her bed. The police were angered at Smith's suspicion that they were wrong, and angered too that prosecutors in the DA's office were beginning to listen. Angered at Smith's suspicion that they were wrong, and angered too that prosecutors in the DA's office were beginning to listen to him. Lead Detective Steve Thomas accused Smith and the DA staff of losing touch with reality and of impeding the investigation. Concerned at the hostility, Smith turned to his old boss, John Anderson, the sheriff of
that the lead should be dismissed, that it was of no value. And that was very concerning. I thought there was a lot of physical evidence that pointed to someone other than a family member.
Despite this, police still hoped to force a confession, and media pressure on the Ramseys intensified.
Vanity Fair says Boulder police are so sure of their case, they've had arrest affidavits prepared since May.
They list evidence against the two parties.
John and Patsy Ray could have taken her from the bed without a struggle taking place.
Smith discovered how she was taken while pursuing another problem, the cause of mysterious marks on her back and face, which the autopsy report described as unexplained abrasions.
We were pretty sure that these injuries weren't on John Benet beforehand because pictures were taken of earlier that day. So these injuries occurred right at or about the time of death. So we had to find out what these marks were.
The explanation came when he and a lawyer in the DA's office, by chance, put these two photographs together.
Suddenly, it became apparent that the marks themselves, both on the is this one, and it's the air taser stun gun. If a stun gun is used on a little girl, I'm sure it would have knocked her flat. And
Lead Detective Steve Thomas said the intruder was non-existent and the idea of a stun gun preposterous. While Smith's findings were kept confidential, the police leaked their theory to the media. According to Smith, what actually happened was very different. John Benet was strangled to death with a garrote.
And that's a different version of this particular case, and there's a lot of stuff on the internet about it, and several books have been written. It's very difficult to deduce what actually happened in the household that night. And that'll do it. Let me get a final screen on here. One moment, please.